Today, we're going to take a tour of the EcoStruxure platform. As we'll see throughout the demo, the platform is open, secure, and scalable, and it can be used to monitor and operate many different aspects of data center facilities. It's trusted by the top 10 global data center operators across 140 plus countries. So EcoStruxure is really more than just a day-to-day tool. It can also be a business enabler that empowers operational efficiency, helps you achieve a faster time to market, and delivers strategic oversight into your facilities. So throughout this demo, we're going to take a look at several key functionalities, including multi-site visibility, real-time monitoring, alarm management, power and cooling diagnostics, compliance, reporting, and many others. So let's get started in the portfolio view. This is going to be a centralized dashboard that shows all of our facilities at a glance. The EcoStruxure platform is built on a distributable, scalable, and repeatable architecture that can be adapted to your business needs regardless of the size of your facilities. So this allows us to grow in step with your business and accelerate your time to market. EcoStruxure's architecture is open, it integrates seamlessly with standard industry protocols and third-party platforms, and it lends itself perfectly to standardization. So whether your operators are in USA or Singapore, they're going to encounter a unified interface as well as consistent data management across the board. So let's dive into our data center site. So here we can dive into a specific data center site. We have our building status, our active alarms, even a local weather integration that are immediately visible to the operator. And we also have multiple navigation modes available that can adapt to user preferences. So we can ensure that information is accessible and customizable. So here we have the option of navigating with our 3D model. This can also be a 2D model. And we can also always navigate with our menu items up here at the top. So let's dive into our Network Operations Center, or our NOC room. And of course, as we know, this stands as a command hub of our facility. So we have a multi-screen environment that's tailored for comprehensive monitoring of every aspect of the facility. So the dashboards can be used out of the box. They can be customized to meet your needs, but we can have things like our graphics available for our data center subsystems. We have our high-level dashboards. We have dashboards dedicated to alarms. And of course, we can integrate any equipment or facilities on the periphery, such as our charging stations or office areas. So here we want to enable you to monitor every aspect of your infrastructure. So jumping into our dashboarding, we can see here that we have some tailored widgets for our data center market specifically. We can roll up values such as our campus PUE. We can see some critical information related to the alarms, as well as some environmental data here at a glance. We also have capacity management dashboards, which of course are meant to easily visualize the capacity metrics within our data hall. We can see that we can monitor directly on the busbar level, but also we can use the EcoStruxure tools to look upstream to our UPSs to ensure that we have resilience as we expect in the data center. In tandem, we can also have alarms generated when we're approaching any capacity limits that we've defined, as well as visualize them here on the dashboard, as we can see in these examples. So the intent behind this dashboard, of course, is to provide an easy and intuitive visualization to see how close we are to failover. In addition to capacity management, EcoStruxure also has a comprehensive set of dashboards dedicated to environmental monitoring. So here, for example, we can monitor the humidity and temperature within the data hall. This particular dashboard offers a very visual way of interpreting environmental data. So we know that if something is going yellow or red within this image, that something is going wrong within the data hall. So in combination with notifications and alarms, we do have an early warning if we're going to have an issue within the data hall environment. Beyond monitoring, EcoStruxure also has a comprehensive set of logic capabilities that are able to interpret data and understand the dependencies within our data center system as a whole. So here we see our 4 data halls within our data center site and all of the relevant subsystems. These engineering dashboards are more than just visualizations. They're built with intelligent logic that can help us identify critical faults and perform root cause analysis that could lead to major failures within the data center without being overwhelmed by a huge flood of alarms. Let's take a relatively common scenario like a utility failure. So if you work in and around the data center industry, you know that a utility failure can cause a huge cascade of alarms. Generators are starting, your battery systems are responding, and suddenly your system is just overwhelmed with different notifications. And so it's really hard to understand what actually went wrong and where to start when it comes to identifying the cause of any failures. This particular dashboard is designed to make that analysis more intuitive and much more simple. In the case of a utility failure, you'll still get your flood of alarms. You can always go back to your alarm list and filter through those, but on this dashboard, we're only going to see our MV part over here light up red. So you know immediately that that's where the critical issue is actually occurring. So when your customer calls, you actually can have an answer for them when they ask you what the problem is. Another example is a chiller failure. It's of course very critical. You'll still get your alarms indicating that there is a problem with one of your chillers in the data center. However, if your data center is built with an N+2 redundancy, then operations are still going to continue relatively smoothly. So in that case, this particular dashboard will not show any changes because the system overall is still functioning as designed and you have continuity in your service. So these dashboards are just an example of how we're leveraging EcoStruxure's powerful logic capabilities to solve real-world problems such as alarm fatigue. The logic in the background has already been created by Schneider Electric's engineers. They've done the heavy lifting, and they can help you filter out the noise and focus on what actually matters and empower our teams to act smarter and faster. Now that we've seen some of the dashboarding capabilities of EcoStruxure, let's take a look at real-time monitoring and alarm management. To combat alarm fatigue and other complexities when it comes to managing notifications and events, EcoStruxure offers an intuitive and straightforward alarm management suite. So we can easily identify faults, if a breaker is tripped, or if we have any high temperature alarms. We're able to acknowledge alarms through checklists, check cause notes or any historical comments that other operators might have left or might have left in the shift before yours. And we can also easily pull up alarm history and action logs to check for any trends or historical events. And we can also associate any relative equipment or pages with the alarm. So with a single click, you can easily jump to whatever equipment is in fault or having the issue. In addition, we can also use these alarm events to automatically create tickets in our CMMS. For example, in our EcoStruxure platform, we have a pre-made connector for Plan-On, but any industry CMMS with an open interface is supported for this kind of integration. We can also access, of course, real-time monitoring data within the data hall. Let's take a look at some different ways to do that within EcoStruxure. So diving into a data center here, by easily navigating through the 3D interface, we can see that the trend graphs for data halls are really simple to access, to export, and to run on demand. To do historical analyses, we can easily use the filters that are built in to take a look at historical data. And as I said before, we can also easily access tabular data and export that into an Excel file directly through the interface. Coming back to our data hall, there are many capabilities and functionalities built in within this model. So for example, we can enable different tags to highlight our mechanical equipment, and we can see immediately if we have an equipment that's sending a notification or is in fault, and deep dive into the graphic or any troubleshooting functionalities that we have within the system. So here in our crack graphic, we can see where the alarm is coming from. There was a previous loss of power and perhaps the equipment needs to be reset. We can also attach documents such as commissioning documents or service documents, or even read the asset history from our CMMS system. Besides the mechanical equipment, we can also deep dive into the data hall itself and see operational data related to the racks, and even dive further and get to the in-rack level to see if we have any port disconnections and so on within the rack itself. Beyond the IT, we can also navigate to our fuel system. So navigating to the back of our data center, we can see here that we can easily click on our fuel system here to see that we have full automatic control and monitoring. So far we've seen a lot of capabilities related to the mechanical side of things, as well as some monitoring that we can do within the data hall. But since it's an integrated and comprehensive platform, we can also do the electrical side. So let's take a look. To navigate to some of our electrical systems, we can easily use these menus on the left here and deep dive into our MV single lines. We all know the data center market is rapidly growing. In addition to that, data centers are growing in size, they're becoming more complex, and with the advent of AI, we see inconsistent and sometimes unpredictable load profiles as well. All of this is leading towards more automated MV power systems. So, in addition to that, we do see IEC 61850 becoming more prevalent as a protocol as it's more future proof, it's quick, it's faster to deploy, and we've also seen that it's easier to test at factory. So in this particular example that we see on the screen now, we're demonstrating a self-healing RMU network. So if there's a fault, it'll automatically reconnect the system without human intervention. So this provides, of course, quicker uptime, more reliable uptime, and perhaps most importantly, more safety for our operators in the data center. We also offer subsynchronous oscillation monitoring within EcoStruxure. This is a relatively new phenomena, at least for the data center industry, that we are seeing more and more as we introduce AI loads within our data center. And in addition, we can also monitor for arc flashes. Arc flash detection is actually a default coming from the EcoStruxure platform using templated devices. So altogether, we're able to provide a 24/7 continuous thermal monitoring. We can avoid downtime and, of course, intrusive and dangerous inspections, and have instantaneous feedback about our MV system through the EcoStruxure interface. Let's dive even deeper into our low voltage and go into one of our LV rooms here. And here we see an example of an animated one-line diagram. This image is interactive, meaning that we can actually dive into our meters, see the values that are coming in through the system, and even leverage EcoStruxure's capabilities when it comes to live waveforms as well as millisecond timestamping. One thing to mention is that all of the devices that we've taken a look at so far have design templates that include all of the features, including these advanced features like this waveform analysis capability. So we can also receive alarms when we have power quality events in the data center. We can see here through the alarms pane that we have a load loss of 50%. We can see whether it's upstream or downstream and all of the devices that are also affected by this. Diving deeper, once again, we can see the details regarding this power quality event, and the system will automatically generate a tolerance chart showing where it falls in the standard SABIMA or ITIC curve. In addition, we have fully integrated out-of-the-box reporting for our electrical systems. For example, we can take a look at breaker diagnostics and easily see where we have wear levels, at any breakers that need to be replaced. We can see trip settings as well as advanced protection details. So all of these elements that we've explored now on the electrical side are fully integrated into the EcoStruxure platform. And of course, having the single pane of glass solution helps reduce errors and provides the maximum functionality with a minimal deployment time. While we're here in reporting, let's take a look at other ways that the EcoStruxure platform can make data work for you. The reporting capabilities that we have are out of the box and tailored for data center needs. So for example, we can take a look at reports like UPS battery health. Essentially, in this report, what we're able to do is take our last test data and automatically overlap it with our baseline commissioning data so that we can monitor the battery performance. Then this report can make a recommendation of when those batteries are still within serviceable limits. So are our batteries healthy? Are they not healthy? Do they need to be replaced? By leveraging reports like this, we're able to make better data-driven decisions when it comes to battery replacement and perhaps defer those capital investments. So in this particular case, it's obviously failed for the sake of our demo, but many of the EcoStruxure platform users are able to use this data to extend equipment lifetime, reduce maintenance costs, and of course, defer expenditures. So we can see here an example of a billing report showing energy usage across our data center. We can also generate different summaries as well, showing the breakdown per customer. All of these reports can be emailed directly to you and can be customized as needed. We can also report on key data center related metrics such as our PUE. So if we jump into our energy analysis reporting section here, we can bring up our PUE summary report and see that data trended over time. As I said before, these reports are automatically generated and they can be emailed to you directly on a regular basis. As you can see here, there's quite an extensive array of different reports that come with the system that cover the majority of different use cases that we find within the data center. So far in this demo, we've seen a lot of the BMS and EPMS capabilities of the EcoStruxure platform, especially when it comes to monitoring and controlling our mechanical equipment, monitoring our electrical equipment, and of course, monitoring what's going on in our data hall. But in addition to that, the EcoStruxure platform is also capable of covering access control, fire system monitoring, and can also compile all of the underlying data that we've seen into concise and comprehensive sustainability reports. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Here we are in an example of our access control systems. So as I said before, the EcoStruxure platform has a fully integrated access control system. For example, the system can highlight if we have any forced doors and can also have statuses representing when we have valid access into the spaces within our building. Beyond that, we can keep track of all of the users that are accessing our physical infrastructure, as well as have a full log of all of the different accesses through our system. Coming back to our model here, we also have monitoring capabilities when it comes to fire in our fire system and detectors. So here we can see the same layout, but now we have our fire detectors in the room as well as their statuses. So we can also see if we have any fire detectors that need attention or are in fault. We can take a look at our fire panel directly. We can have visual alarms in addition to our standard alarms list and alarm management capabilities when we have a break glass event, or if we have a case where a fire alarm is going off. We're nearing the end of our comprehensive EcoStruxure platform demo. Let's take a look at some of the ways that we can compile all of that data that we've just seen into some comprehensive and concise dashboards, especially tailored for sustainability reporting. Here we see that we have a wide array of different dashboards that provide a panoramic overview of the operations within our infrastructure. If we jump into meter management, we can see a good example of a dashboard that shows the energy consumption across our facility. So here we see the energy consumption from today. We can roll it up and average it across different time periods, such as a week or even the entire year. We can also visualize it via Sankey diagrams or trends, and we can even plot graphs like this one showing the consumption signature, which is showing the building energy consumption in relation to the outside air temperature, so we can map out any abnormalities. In addition to that, we can also create similar graphs showing the consumption readings from our individual tenants. So here we have an example showing different meter readings across our facility, as well as the trended data associated with them. So in addition to monitoring, another interesting capability that we have within the system is being able to compare our actual consumption versus the expected consumption. In addition to that, if you have a microgrid or some energy being generated on site, we can also monitor that aspect of the facility, and we can see how much energy we expect to generate versus the actual energy generated. So for today, we've finally reached the end of our EcoStruxure platform demo, even though we've only scratched the surface of its capabilities. We've seen that EcoStruxure, despite the high expectations that we have for critical facilities like data centers, can deliver operational control and diagnostics. It can also support in strategic insights and cost control, compliance, and scalability, whether you're an operator or a COO. In summary, the EcoStruxure platform can form the backbone of a resilient, efficient, and future-ready data center. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions or want to see even more use cases in our platform. Thank you, and see you next time.